up from around 56 in mid-June. Svitolina is number 10 in the world, the number 2 seed of this tournament, and a 2-time Grand Slam semifinalist with an Olympic bronze medal and a Rome title from May of this year. They have played once in their careers. Eala won. What we're about to look at is not a coronation, and it's not a rivalry, and one match doesn't make a rivalry. What it is a turning point captured in real time. And it's worth paying attention to while it's still happening. Let's be fair to what Svitolina brings into this quarterfinal, because the story doesn't work if we make her small. She is one of the most decorated active players in women's tennis. 2 Grand Slam semifinals, a Paris Olympic bronze in 2024, and less than 3 months ago, she lifted the trophy at the Internazionale BNL d'Italia in Rome, the biggest clay title outside of Roland Garros. She came back from maternity leave, climbed back into the top 10, and stayed there. At age 31, she is not a player anyone on tour takes lightly, and on the specific question of surface, hard courts historically suit her. Grass is not her preferred canvas. Berlin, in other words, was the match Svitolina would want to play again on paper, and Washington gives her exactly that chance, but the honest picture cuts both ways. Svitolina's win over Polina Kudermetova on Thursday night 7-6 in a tiebreak and then 6-4 was her first match victory in over a month, since June 23rd in Bad Homburg. Kudermetova served for the first set twice and had a set point at 6-5 before Svitolina saved it with a backhand passing shot. This is a veteran finding her footing again on hard courts after a rough patch, and she was clear-eyed about it afterwards. "I was trying to be locked in," she said. "First match, hard courts, everything is new." That's not fear, it's not regret. It's a professional resetting her expectations in public. What it does mean, though, is that the Svitolina walking into this quarterfinal is not the same Svitolina who lifted the trophy in Rome. The momentum sits with the 21-year-old across the net. On paper, Svitolina still holds every historical advantage. In the last 5 weeks, none of those advantages have translated into results against Eala. That's the tension. That's the honest read of the matchup. And it's the frame we're going to hold on to while we look at how she actually got here. Start with the Berlin scoreline itself, 6-3, 6-4 on grass over a world number 8, straight sets. And the underlying numbers back the result up. Eala had a first serve percentage of 69 to Svitolina's 62. And she won the return battle 13-9 on first serves and 21-19 on second. She broke Svitolina in the 8th game to close out the first set, and in the second, she was up 5-2 before Svitolina refused to go quietly and pulled it back to 5-4. Eala served it out anyway. That's a match where a player didn't just get lucky, she out-executed a top 10 opponent on the metrics that don't lie. It was her 6th top 10 win of her career, and per ESPN's reporting, her first back-to-back top 10 wins since Miami 2025. That's the scoreline, but scorelines don't tell you what a player learned about themselves in the process of putting one up on the board, because 2 weeks later at Wimbledon in the 3rd round, Eala walked out onto court 1 against Iga Świątek, the world number 1, the defending Wimbledon champion of that year, one of the best players of her generation, and Eala took her to a 7-6 tiebreak in the first set, 11 points to 9, and then won the second set 6-2. It's worth stating that plainly. Between the 2 Svitolina meetings we're talking about, Eala took down Iga Świątek at Wimbledon. If Berlin was the shock, that was the confirmation. That was the answer to every question you might have wanted to ask about whether the Svitolina win was a one-off. Świątek is not a player anyone runs off a Grand Slam court in the second set by accident. Now, the turning point story doesn't work without the setback, so let's put it in. In the 4th round of Wimbledon, Jasmine Paolini beat Eala 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Paolini is a former Roland Garros finalist and a former Wimbledon finalist. It was a loss, and it ended one of the most historic Grand Slam runs any Filipina player has ever had. And this is the moment where the shape of the story either becomes a good week or becomes a career shift, because what she did next tells you which one it was. 3 weeks. That's the window between the Paolini loss at Wimbledon and Eala's first-round match in Washington against Zheng Qinwen, the 2024 Olympic gold medalist, entering as a wild card. Eala lost the opening set 4-6. She was down a break in the second. She won the third set 6-1. That's a match she had every reason to lose, and she didn't. And then in the second round, she drew Leylah Fernandez, the defending Washington champion, the number 7 seed, a former U.S. Open finalist. And this is where the emotional climax of the last week sits, because Eala was down 5-1 in the second set. 5-1. Fernandez was 2 games from forcing a decider, and Eala reeled off 6 games in a row. She broke back at 5-5 with what the WTA's own match report called a defensive rally of the highest quality. A forehand winner off a punishing exchange, standing in and refusing to lose it. She won the tiebreak 7-1, 6-2, 7-6. 2 defending champions in 2 consecutive tournaments, first Swiatek at Wimbledon, and now Fernandez in Washington, both dethroned. And here is what she said afterwards, in her own words, and it is worth quoting because it tells you what she is now built out of. I know that she was playing a little better, and maybe my level dropped a little bit. Those are very tricky moments when you know your level has dropped and you want to do better, but things for one reason or another just aren't coming out. I think patience was key there, just trying to work it out, and a strong mentality in terms of trying to find solutions. That's the sentence. Patience. Finding solutions, that's the exact quality Alina Svitolina has to face across the net in this quarterfinal, and she knows it. Because here is what Svitolina herself has said on the record, published by the WTA on the eve of the rematch. "It was not an easy battle for me," she said, of the Berlin loss. And on the rematch, "Tomorrow is a new surface, new country, a new city, so it's a new challenge. And hopefully I'm going to draw some confidence from today's match and carry it into tomorrow." That is the honest voice of a top 10 player recalibrating. It is not the voice of somebody underestimating anyone. Svitolina is, by every professional standard, treating Eala as the threat she has become. And that itself is worth registering. 12 months ago, Eala was a wild card, losing the Eastbourne final to Maya Joint in a 3-set decider. Today, Alina Svitolina, world number 10, Rome champion, Olympic bronze medalist, is publicly hoping to draw confidence from a first-round tune-up in order to face her. The room has changed. The people who cover this player closely, including the team around her that has included work with Tony Nadal in Mallorca, the same Tony Nadal who built one of the greatest careers in tennis history, have watched this shift happen game by game. But you don't need a coaching endorsement to see what the last 5 weeks say. You just need to read Svitolina's own words back slowly and hear what a veteran sounds like when she is preparing carefully for somebody who did not, until very recently, warrant careful preparation. The stakes on this quarterfinal are worth naming clearly. If Eala wins, she plays the winner of Naomi Osaka and Elisabetta Cocciaretto in the semifinal on Saturday. That would be her first WTA 500 hard-court semifinal. It would push her ranking further into territory no Filipino player has ever occupied. She is already at number 28, the highest-ranked Filipino singles player in WTA history, up from around 56 less than 7 weeks ago. A semifinal here begins to affect U.S. Open seeding. It changes which side of the draw she lands on. It changes the caliber of opponent she faces in the first week of a Grand Slam. These are not abstract stakes. They're the concrete infrastructure of a career being built in public. And back in Manila, this match is being broadcast at 6:30 in the morning local time, which means kids getting ready for school, parents making breakfast, whole households turning the television toward Washington, D.C. before the sun is properly up. On Reddit, on the tennis subreddit thread after her Berlin win, one of the top comments simply read, "Alex, I belong here, Eala. I really think she had a mindset change." That's a fan sentiment, not a fact, but it captures something that the results are now backing up. And the WTA's own official Instagram has taken to calling her, in its match graphics, the Eala Express. That is not a nickname a governing body attaches to a player it considers a curiosity. It is a nickname it attaches to a player it expects to be around for a while. The vulnerability in this story is real and it isn't buried. Wimbledon ended in a loss. She was up in the fourth round, and Paolini took it back from her in 3 sets. Less than 14 months before this Washington quarterfinal, she was standing on a grass court in Eastbourne watching Maya Joint save 4 championship points against her to take the title. That's not ancient history. That's the same player. And what has changed verifiably in that window is not the level of adversity she faces. It is the way she metabolizes it. Down a set to Zheng, down 5-1 to Fernandez, down at every point on the ledger against Swiatek before winning that tiebreak 11-9. The pattern isn't accidental anymore. It's a feature. It's the sentence she said out loud after the Fernandez match. Patience, mentality, finding solutions, arriving as a habit before it arrives as a headline. So here is where we land, and here is the room Alex Eala is now in. 5 weeks ago, she beat Eala Svitolina 6-3, 6-4 on grass in Berlin. Between then and now, she took a set off the world #1 at Wimbledon, dethroned 2 defending champions in 2 tournaments, one of them the most recent Wimbledon champion herself, and moved from world number 56 to world number 28. Tonight, or in a few hours, depending on where you are watching from, she gets a chance to make her head-to-head against a top 10 Ukrainian legend 2-0. She may win it, she may not. That's honest. 1 match is not a pattern, and 2 would only begin 1. But look at who is now around her. Naomi Osaka on the other side of this draw. Swiatek and Fernandez behind her in the last 2 tournaments. Svitolina preparing carefully, publicly for the rematch.